Chapter 1196 Earth Centipede Frenzy. This proven killing method of Liang Yu's drew the attention of many people. And many people recognized Liang Yu's identity. After all, she was once a renowned grandmaster in the martial arts world, and many people had seen her face. Flower personally took to the field and killed these earth centipedes. It took a bite of an earth centipede and ate its mouth full of juice, just as convenient as eating noodles. Uncle Yu, on the other hand, was half kneeling on its back, using the gun in his hand to remotely cover for Liang Yu. Fatty Su tugged at the soft fur on Flower's back with a death grip, his little face pale, only able to use his blizzard ability to control the field and cool down the surrounding area as a way to slightly affect the Earth centipede colony, but unable to cause any substantial damage. Rumble. The tremors underground grew more and more violent. Earth centipedes were still pouring out in a steady stream. The great battle at the Epsilon level had driven out all the Earth centipedes underground, and so it came to this one battlefield. Among them, there were some ancient adult bodies. Many huge caves broke open on top of the rock wall, and then 4 giant Earth centipedes that reached a size of over 100 meters crawled out. Their strength was clearly too much stronger than all the other Earth centipedes, and they were even close to Epsilon's level. If measured by human standards, they would have to be around 9,800 points at least. The big one is coming, Fatty Su said with a ghastly white face. Just seeing that terrifying size made him feel his fat body tremble. But even at a time like this, he still didn't forget to look for Li Yangyang's figure amongst the crowd. Blue Bird, Li Yangyang, ability god's descendant. Blue Bird was a god's messenger in mythology, and Yang Yangli could call upon the gods to descend upon herself through her supernatural abilities. Of course, this is just a one-sided story, but she can indeed attach different abilities to herself. Her body was lithe, and she joined forces with the Big Dipper crowd to roam amongst the Earth centipede's horde. Beneath her seemingly soft face, there was a hidden power to kill and destroy. Bang! 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 The rock wall was broken through even more, and more and more Earth centipedes began to emerge, and at this time, the number of Earth centipedes was more than doubled than before. And the powerful existences among them were even several times more. This caused the expressions on the faces of the mutant legions to become grim. I'm afraid we're going to face a vicious battle next, Tian Fengyi said in a deep voice. There was another sentence that he didn't say out loud, but many people knew it clearly inside. That was that in the next battle, someone would definitely fall here. Stall them at all costs, never be able to affect the battlefield over there. Tian Fengyi punched his chest and let out a furious roar up to the sky, then leapt forward and led the charge towards a giant Earth centipede. Flower flew in with a huff, and Liang Yu grabbed its paw and swept towards a giant Earth centipede as well. Even though she was facing an opponent that was much stronger than herself, Liang Yu did not have the slightest bit of fear on her face. As a martial artist, she had been constantly challenging her own limits since she was a child, and engaging in battles with powerful opponents would allow her to quickly become strong. What's more, the strengths and weaknesses between mutants were never judged purely by their supernatural ability index. As a martial arts master, anyone who allowed Liang Yu to get close would risk being killed in seconds. Liang Yu gripped the dragon's roar in her hand tightly. She needed to find an opportunity to insert this sword into the core of that giant Earth centipede. However, she wouldn't do it brute force. Instead, she would cooperate with Flower and strive to kill the enemy without any injuries. In each of the 4 regions, the mutants from each region had chosen a few giant Earth centipedes as their opponents. On the northwest region's side, Sky War god Qinling hovered in the air, and her gaze flashed with an obscure luster as it landed on the distant Flower as well as Liang Yu's several people. Sky, what are you doing? Hurry back! A shout rang in Qingling's ears. Qinling turned around to see that it was mortal war god Xiao Liu calling out to her. Although Qinling was the highest among the 5 extreme gods of war, she was not the strongest in terms of strength. The person with the strongest strength was Xiao Liu, who had an ability index of 9,800 points. When it came to the battlefield, he was the one in command. There were only 5 people on the Northwest region's side, but they needed to face tens of thousands of Earth centipedes, so not a single person could be missing. Of course, the same situation was what the other regions had to face. In addition to the elite Earth centipede, a large number of small monsters would also cause them great trouble. Xiao Liu gave an order to Qinling, "You clear these small monsters, just leave the big guys to us." Qinling naturally had no problem with this. Her advantage was her extreme speed, and she was best at hunting the weak. Newt! A falcon's cry broke through the air as Qinling transformed into a peregrine falcon and took the lead in sweeping towards the battlefield to clear the surrounding small monsters. Xiao Liu looked at the giant Earth centipede that was 1,000 meters away in front of him, as well as the many elite Earth centipedes with captain-level ability indexes, and twisted his neck with a face full of unconcern. His muscles surged like machinery, and then he reached out and pulled out a long Eisenman metal greatsword from his back. In an instant, his body drew up more than a meter in place, his muscles bulging as his physique transformed into a perfect fighting form. A dark gray shrouded his skin, and even the massive long sword turned a dark gray hue. He blocked in front of a few others with a few belligerent maniacal smiles on his face. Mortal War God Xiao Liu, ability code Metal Frenzy. His ability was strengthening all substances, including his own body. Therefore, he was the equivalent of being the top mutant of strengthening, as well as the strongest weapon master. Because even a wooden stick that fell into his hands could be turned into a sharp blade that was comparable to Edelman metal. The giant blue Earth centipede opened its huge commissary, and facing the human who was facing his provocation straight on, it opened its huge mouth, and a terrifying wave of energy shot directly over Xiao Liu. Hey! With a cold laugh, the muscles of his arm bulged violently, then he raised the long sword in his hand high and slashed down against the raging energy wave. Like a boulder making a river cut off, the long sword and the energy wave collided together, and surprisingly, it was hard enough to slash it through the center. And right at this moment, behind him, Earth War God Qinling, South Pole War God Di Fei, and North Pole War God Qinjia Hao were also ready. Qinling and Di Fei were covering Qinjia Hao on both sides, just to help him buy time. Qinjia Hao was a burly man of 1 meter 9, and at this moment, his body was as if he had been boiled, his body emanated a rolling heat, and his skin was all reddish in color. The combat uniform on his body had long been taken off, otherwise it would be difficult to bear the high temperature of his body surface. Anyone was able to feel that an extremely raging and surging force was converging inside his chest. When this energy condensed to the extreme, Xiao Liu stepped aside. Qinjia Hao aimed at the giant Earth centipede in front of him, and his mouth snapped open at an angle unimaginable to humans. A terrifying energy that was several times more powerful than the previous Earth centipede instantly penetrated through space, directly hitting the area where the giant Earth centipede was located. Chapter 1197, each showing their means. A terrifying might burst out from Qinjia Hao's mouth, shining like a sun beneath the abyss. A powerful pillar of light penetrated the entire abyss, enveloping all the Earth centipedes in the immediate side of space. In an instant, thousands of Earth centipedes were reduced to pieces, and even the giant Earth centipede was struck hard, sinking into the thick rock layer. This strike caused everyone to look sideways, as the power of this strike was too terrifying, and had even exceeded the limits of the Delta's level in the general sense. And after Qinjia Hao used this move, his body fell into a weakened state. Rolling waves of heat erupted from his mouth, and his chest rose and fell violently, as if his entire body had lost a few points. North Pole War God Qinjia Hao, his ability was heavy artillery. Coming from an artillery background, he was obsessed with the most powerful firepower, and his ability was also the most polarized means of attack. As long as he was given enough time to store his energy, he could explode with an attack power that far exceeded his own level. But the opposite was his own vulnerability. Therefore, amongst the 5 extreme gods of war, he was the recognized humanoid self-propelled cannon and the output source of the battle formation. When the 5 extreme gods of war joined forces and utilized the power of the battle formation, they could even threaten Epsilon-level mutants under special circumstances. That giant earth centipede was directly hit hard by one of Chen Jiao's heavy artillery shots, and its body was almost slashed. However, this creature that had grown up devouring Yuan stone veins was extremely strong in both defense and self-healing ability. The huge body wriggled as the injuries slowly recovered, and a large number of earth centipedes, like locusts, came forward and back towards the 5 extreme gods of war from the rock wall. Xiao Liu held his battle sword in both hands and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air from his mouth. Strong supernatural energy erupted out from his body as he fell into the abyss like a god of battle, and his sword met the countless earth centipedes with a vicious slash. The entire battle under the abyss boiled up like boiling water. The appearance of the Centipede King caused all of the earth centipedes' clans to spring up in an instant. This was an incomparably large underground kingdom, and before humans even appeared in the Qinling mountain range, the mutated colony had begun to feed on Yuan stone veins. This unique advantage allowed them to emerge with a large number of powerful individuals. There were the earliest mutants, the offspring born from the Centipede King and Centipede Queen, who possessed the powerful genes of both parents and excellent food, and became more and more powerful in the days to come. The underground kingdom was powerful enough to destroy a single human region. More and more powerful earth centipedes appeared, until it made even the mutant legions start to feel their scalps tingle. Flower rushed towards a giant earth centipede, spewing out ball after ball of atomic light from her mouth, exploding clumps after clumps of huge energy waves on top of the rock wall, as large swathes of earth centipede were crushed directly. On the other hand, Liang Yu, Uncle Yu and Fatty Su were responsible for cooperating at the side, harvesting the remaining earth centipede. The giant earth centipede with an ability index close to epsilon was enraged. Its body was reddish in color and its head was like a poisonous scorpion, and with a strange cry, it quickly crawled over from the rock wall and then pounced on Flower with a twisted body. The huge pincers were like 2 sharp scissors, instantly slashing at Flower's body. Roar! Flower's wings spread out, and she was able to move nimbly even in the middle of the underground space, and her huge iron claws slapped fiercely towards the earth centipede's body. The 2 giant beasts directly collided in midair. The shockwave caused by the shockwave in the underground set off a huge wind. A large number of surrounding mutants and earth centipede were lifted out, and it was difficult to get close to the slightest bit. Bang! 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 The battle between beasts and insects was plain and simple, relying on all instincts, and soon Flower was entangled with the giant earth centipede. The earth centipede's claws pickpocket Flower's body, and Flower also used her sharp claws to tug on the earth centipede's long body, and began to utilize the feline's advantage of agility to tear at it. The 2 huge clusters of beasts rolled together and crashed down the abyss, incessantly hitting the rock walls, and large swathes of Yuan stone veins were shattered and crashed down into the abyss. Fatty Su deadpanned Flower's fur and tried to unleash Blizzard, to help Flower gain an advantage, but his ability was almost insignificant against the giant earth centipede. Instead, the fluctuations of the battle between the 2 giant beasts nearly sliced off his head. After all, the giant earth centipede's large pincers were bigger than both of his, and a casual rub was not something he could withstand. Chun-Lei, quickly go! Don't stay here! Seeing the bad situation, Uncle Yu immediately tugged on Fatty Su's arm before using the hook lock to leave Flower's back. A battle of this level was simply not something they could get involved in. Flower needed to fight the giant earth centipede with all her might and couldn't care less about them, so leaving to deal with other small monsters was the right thing to do. Fatty Su's face turned white after being led away by Uncle Yu. Use the hook lock to hang on the rock wall, don't fall off. Uncle Yu loudly scolded, reminding Fatty Su to get his spirits up. Fatty Su was very fearful inside at this moment, but after half a year of Uncle Yu's refining, coupled with his own supernatural abilities, he actually wasn't weak. He just didn't have enough courage to face the cruelty of a frontal battlefield yet. And right now, it was forcing him to face it. Fatty Su looked around. Flower, Liang Yu and Uncle Yu were all fighting desperately. The earth centipede's horde began to furiously counterattack. Everyone was taking care of themselves, and even the mutant legions were beginning to suffer casualties. Fatty Sue swallowed his saliva. Right now, if he wanted to survive, he could only rely on himself. Kalala, a dozen earth centipede crawled swiftly towards him. This horrifying crawling creature's speed of climbing along the rock wall was extremely astonishing, and its huge body naturally carried a sense of oppression. Fatty Sue swallowed his saliva, his mind thinking of all the previous battles. Fear still existed, but the long-lost fervor was also activated in the midst of the desperate situation. He took a deep breath, his stomach expanding, before violently spewing out towards the front. A raging storm of ice and snow directly enveloped the group of earth centipedes in front of him. An instant of drastic cooling caused these monsters that were accustomed to surviving in the warmth of the underground environment to begin to experience intense discomfort as their bodies were frozen in ice and snow. Fatty Sue immediately pulled out the weapon Zhang Yi had given him from his waist. The weapons used by the shelter's crowd were all modified by Liu Karen, and the ammunition was also special holy silver bullet. Although Fatty Sue was a wimp, he, like Zhang Yi, was particularly life-thirsty, so during this period of time, he hadn't practiced his marksmanship and fighting techniques much. Strictly speaking, he wasn't weak, and as long as he overcame his inner fear, he was an equally good fighter. Bang! 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 Fatty Sue's eyes all sharpened as he aimed at those frozen earth centipedes and pulled the trigger in his hand. Chapter 1198 Fighting is cool. Although those earth centipedes had hard armor, they couldn't carry the weapon in Fatty Sue's hand, and soon, blood and flesh flew and fell down into the endless abyss. I did it! Fatty Sue stared in disbelief, then fell into ecstasy. It turned out that he wasn't that useless. And this feeling of killing his enemy with his own hands made his simple head feel refreshed. Oh hi! Fatty Sue let out a shout of joy, the tension and excitement inside him making him unstoppable. Not far away, Uncle Yu, who was carrying 2 machine guns in both hands, saw this, and the corner of his mouth also revealed a heartfelt smile. After all, he was the soldier he personally brought out. Whether Fatty Sue had any potential or not, Uncle Yu was of course clear. There weren't that many mediocre talents in this world, most people still had to push themselves to realize how strong they were. Chunlei, how do you feel? Uncle Yu asked with a smile, the machine gun in his hand spewing out blue flames, sweeping the earth centipede that kept coming in the distance. Fighting is cool. Fatty Sue laughed out loud, his adrenaline rush making him forget the fear in his heart. The two began to slowly fight in tandem, Fatty Sue utilizing Blizzard's ability to control the field, causing the earth centipedes that were attacking them to be frozen before the duo used their weapons to shoot point blank. The self-aiming system of the combat suit helped them save a lot of effort, although they couldn't fully realize the headlock attack, but as a secondary function, it allowed them to greatly reduce the error of all their attacks at close range. And the main force of this battlefield was still Liang Yu. Flower had taken away that giant earth centipede to start a one-on-one battle, and right now Liang Yu was dominating this battlefield. The dragon's roar in her hand combined with the ability of the Grand Master, slicing through the armor of those earth centipedes was like cutting a bull. The use of skill could greatly reduce the consumption of supernatural energy and physical strength. Her swords never dragged, they were inserted into the earth centipede's source from amongst the gaps in its armor, and then killed it with a single slash. The attack was not flashy, but it was simple and effective. Although they weren't the main force on this battlefield, yet they definitely didn't drag their feet either. This alone made the other regions wonder, not daring to underestimate the Jiangnan region in their hearts. No, strictly speaking, it made them pay more attention to Zhang Yi's team. Because of the people who came today, other than Deng Shintong who acted as a light bulb, all the others were Zhang Yi's partners. And amongst the battlefield, those who were under the greatest pressure from the front were still the mutants of Xinjiang region. Wu Zhiqi, Tianfeng Yi, and Blue Bird, Liang Yang, together with the 10 Big Dipper, the 12-level mutants became the main force in the battlefield. In the middle of the huge underground lair, Zhang Yi and the other Western Epsilons launched a siege against the Centipede King. The strength of a monster with a supernatural ability index of 20,000 points was mind-boggling. The quantity did not make up for the gap above the quality, especially in the Centipede King's lair. It had a great advantage in the battle. West personally fought with great difficulty as well. Just wanting to break through the Centipede King's defenses and blast through the layer of reddish, almost purple armor would require an enormous amount of strength. Not to mention its perverted self-healing ability, which was even more mind-numbing. Zhang Yi opened his everything under heaven, and used the powerful defense of dimensional space to block its attack. The time-based ability of his left eye, everything follows the trail, could predict all the Centipede King's movements within 2 seconds, so no matter how fast the Centipede King's attacks were, they would be blocked by Zhang Yi. On the frontal battlefield, the yellow supernatural energy around Zhong Yue's body had gone berserk, the substantial power enveloping the rock giant's circumference like a storm before desperately engaging in a swim with the Centipede King. Han Shan's giant Calamity Crow kept attacking in the air, and the three of them were able to check the Centipede King by combining their efforts. As for Li Changgong, who had lost one of his arms, he held down his movements and did not strike easily. His attack had already failed once, and he could not launch another attack rashly. It was useless to attack more than once, but instead, it was easy for Centipede King to figure out his attack method. It would be better to find a good opportunity to kill him with a single strike. However, the intelligence possessed by the Centipede King was not low, and even though he was facing the attacks of 3 people at the same time, he still took precautions against the centipede mutant who was able to slice through his armor in one blow. Screech dash ... It raised its head and shot out a long ray of light from amongst the black gem-like eye-like structure on its head. That terrifying might instantly penetrated through a dozen dimensional gates, slicing into the rock wall thousands of meters away like a sharp blade. Zhang Yi's Westerners' faces were grave as they hurriedly dodged its deadly attack. The energy rays swept across the sky, and half of the underground lair was almost sliced through, leaving a circle of horrifying cuts on the cavern's rock walls. Rumble! The crypt trembled violently as large veins of yuan stone fell down. Zhang Yi didn't move and put them all into his dimensional space. The others didn't notice this either and just thought that Zhang Yi was helping them defend against the Centipede King's attack. However, they did not notice that Zhang Yi had unknowingly collected tens of thousands of tons of yuan stone ore. The Centipede King failed to land a single blow, and then its 500-meter-long terrifying body rose up, opening its mouth and spitting out a raging magma-like hot fluid aimed at the crowd. Unsurprisingly, Zhang Yi once again utilized dimensional space to absorb it. Zhong Yue's 3 people looked towards Zhang Yi, and in their hearts, they were all greatly thankful that Zhang Yi was here today. A person's name might be taken wrongly, but the title definitely wouldn't be. Absolute Defense was Absolute Defense, a 15,000-point supernatural ability index, yet it could easily block a 20,000-point mutant beast's attack for them. To be honest, if it wasn't for the fact that Zhang Yi was here, it would have been impossible for the other 3 to be intact after fighting until now. Considering Zhang Yi's terrifying attack power of the Void ability, as well as his simultaneous possession of the spatial ability of time, this amazing talent became more and more terrifying the more they thought about it. Even the few of them who were the top powerhouses of Huashu Kingdom had some jealousy arise within them. When the Centipede King saw that one of its attacks had been cancelled out, it also hissed angrily. It looked towards Zhang Yi, and Zhang Yi immediately had the feeling of being locked by a powerful hostile intent. Good guy, this is a rush, isn't it? Zhang Yi couldn't help but laugh in his heart. This feeling was too familiar to him. There had been countless battles where his opponents, especially those whose strength was above his, were furious because they were unable to break through his defense. It was that kind of frustration where one was clearly stronger than the opponent, but just couldn't kill them. Right at this moment, Zhang Yi's ears rang with Yang Xinxin's words. Brother, if it's really tricky, you can use that thing. Zhang Yi raised his eyebrows slightly, thinking of the puppet that Hotu had given to Yang Xinxin. When Hotu gave that thing to Yang Xinxin, she was actually borrowing her hand to give it to Zhang Yi. Undoubtedly, it was a prop prepared for this operation. Hotu was unwilling, or unable, to leave Xingjing, so the only way to strike was through this method. There's no need to rush first, just wait a little longer. Chapter 1199, Joint Warfare. At this moment, how could Zhang Yi still not understand that Ho Tu had given him the puppet doll just to use it at such a time? Only that he wasn't in a hurry because right now, things hadn't completely reached an uncontrollable situation. What's more, he didn't dare to use what Ho Tu had given him so easily. But the problem at hand was how to kill this monster with a supernatural ability index of 20,000 points. Zhang Yi's power couldn't kill it at all nowadays, and if the strongest killing move, Halberd of Doom, couldn't kill the Centipede King in seconds, it would quickly regenerate. Then it could only rely on the special ability, which was Li Changgong's I Am Heaven's Will, ignore all defense to do so. Zhang Yi glanced at Li Changgong, who was not far away, and inwardly began to secretly calculate what he had to do to create a suitable opportunity for this fellow. And at this time, the earth centipede suddenly moved. It roared in anger, and that mournful cry caused one's eardrums to ache. Immediately afterward, the crystal structure on its head began to release a large amount of powerful rays, which began to sweep indiscriminately at the surroundings. This first move forced Han Shanzhua and Zongyue back. Zongyue reinforced everyone's protective shields, and Zhang Yi unfolded his dimensional gate to block in front of everyone. The Centipede King was allowed to wreak havoc on the surrounding area without discrimination. The earth slabs below 10,000 meters were solidified and not that easy to destroy, but to the Centipede King, these rock formations and the Yuan stone veins contained within them were as fragile as if they were made of sand. The laser rays swiftly cut through the entire cavern one by one, like a hot sword slicing through butter. Rumble! The rock layer above his head was the first to start destroying, large and neat chunks of rock crashing down like meteorites. Each piece was as huge as a house like falling rock. Seeing this scene, Zongyue instantly realized what exactly Centipede King wanted to do. Not good, it wants to destroy this cave. Zhang Yi opened his dimensional space and took all the fallen stones into it, and the large amount of Yuan stone veins mixed in with them made him secretly happy. Centipede King's maneuver had surprisingly saved him a lot of effort, so he could take the opportunity to enrich himself again. Zongyue said to the crowd, "We lost our foothold when it destroyed this place. We can't continue to let it destroy it like this." Once this massive cavern was completely destroyed, the Centipede King could rely on its nature and strong defenses to travel underground almost unaffected. But the movement of the Western human would be greatly restricted. The Centipede King's move seemed reckless, but in reality, it was extremely intelligent. Seeing that the attack could not cause substantial damage to Zhang Yi and the others, the Centipede King could change its mindset and utilize the advantage of geographical location. Can't wait any longer. It must be dealt with as soon as possible. Li Changgong tightened his grip on the long sword in his hand and said in a deep voice. The three of Zongyue could not help but look at him. It was easy to say, the question was how to kill it. Zhang Yi lowered his eyes. Whether Ho Tua's cursed doll should be used or not, this was indeed a problem. After pondering for a while, he slowly spoke. There is a way. What way? Speak quickly. The three of them looked towards Zhang Yi. The cave around them was rapidly collapsing, leaving them little time. If they were not able to resolve the Centipede King as soon as possible, they would only be able to escape from here, and the operation would be declared a complete failure. At that time, I'm afraid that they would really have to use the Reaper of Love to completely blow up this place. Zhang Yi looked towards Li Changgong, who had just finished stopping the bleeding not far away. Follow the original plan. Luya and Jin Yuanzi are responsible for holding the Centipede King at the front. Then I'll help Li Changgong complete the surprise attack. Li Changgong's left arm had been ripped off, but he still had his right hand and could still wield his sword. Hearing Zhang Yi's suggestion, Li Changgong's face was a little hesitant. There was no way for him to approach the Centipede King without a sound. Even though 6 realms without distance could achieve the effect of instantaneous movement, he would still be discovered by the Centipede King. At that point, he would still be in danger of being killed. What do you want to do? I can still do it if I hold it back for a while head-on. Zongyue raised his arms, and 2 huge supernatural shields surfaced in front of him, and as he slammed his arms together, the huge shields merged into one, blocking in front of the crowd. Zhang Yi said, "Gochen can't do a silent approach, but with my ability it can be done." With a distance of Western kilometers, suddenly approaching beyond such a distance and completing the slash. That guy shouldn't realize it. Li Changgong looked at Zhang Yi with cold eyes. "I only have one arm, so the chances of success are not great. You'll have to act with me." The corner of Zhang Yi's mouth hooked up with a touch of mockery. "So afraid of death? Don't worry about it, I will cover for you from the side." He raised the two white eagles in his hands. The attack power of the Halberd of Doom was obvious to all, and Centipede King knew its power. Zhang Yi and the three of them struck in three directions at the same time to attract the Centipede King's attention. This would create a perfect opportunity for Li Changgong to sneak attack. After deliberating, Zhong Yue took the lead. He erupted his most powerful force and headed head-on towards the Centipede King, his powerful supernatural energy entwined around his body in a playful manner. This aura was of course to attract the Centipede King's attention, and sure enough, the powerful force forced the Centipede King to focus on him. The Centipede King opened its huge mouth, and a scorching wave of amazement erupted out of its mouth, heading towards Zhong Yue. Immovable as a mountain, Zhong Yue's arms came together, and a huge yellow supernatural shield formed in front of him like a mountain. Boom! The amazing wave ferociously crashed on top of the supernatural shield, and Zhong Yue's legs were plunged into the earth in a deadly manner, but he did not retreat by half a step. "Do it!" Zhang Yi's dual guns merged together, and a huge void aura appeared behind his back, like an eclipse of the sun, and a powerful power of the void surged out, accompanied by his dual guns shooting out a void halberd that contained a destructive aura. Caw! Caw! Han Shanzhua vibrated his wings, ejecting red-colored waves of demonic crows from his mouth, the red-colored pillars of light wrapped in a terrifying power capable of penetrating mountains, instantly arriving at Centipede King's heels from the other direction. Three people attacked from three directions. This powerful oppressive force, even the Centipede King had to deal with it carefully. It curled up its body, its hard armor made a metal-like ringing sound when it touched, and the crystal structure of its head released a powerful energy to make a confrontation with Zhang Yi's three people. Right at this moment, Zhang Yi looked at Li Changgong beside him. "Go!" The dimensional gate opened in front of his body, and without the slightest hesitation, Li Changgong took a step in. The two-dimensional gates could span a distance of 3 kilometers, and Li Changgong's 6 realms without distance spanned another 1 kilometer. The distance of 4,000 meters ceased to exist in an instant, and this ultra-long-range means of attack, even the Centipede King was simply caught off guard. It was concentrating on fending off the joint attack of Zhang Yi's three, and at this moment, Li Changgong had already killed behind it. With his right hand gripping the longsword tightly, Li Changgong's eyes were filled with murderous energy as he slashed down at the core of the Centipede King's back. The half-moon-shaped sword cut across half of its body in an instant. Chapter 1202 Centipede Kings? Snort dash dot 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 dot. A horizontal line appeared at the waist and abdomen of the Centipede King, and even though it was a steel body, it was still like nothing in front of the absolute defenseless ability. The huge body was cut off at the waist, and Li Changgong's eyes were filled with a look of delight. This time it won't miss again. His eyes blazed at the waist and abdomen of the Centipede King, where there was a copy of the super mutant beast's origin that was as high as 20,000 points of the ability index. He decided that he would fight for this. But just at this time, a playful smile surfaced at the corner of Zhang Yi's mouth as his voice reached his ears. "It's not dead yet." Gao Changkong froze for a moment, and then he saw that the body that was broken into 2 pieces was actually rapidly wriggling with blood and flesh from the break. Pfft! Poof! Large clumps of fresh blood and flesh grew rapidly from the severed mouth, and that Centipede King that was supposed to be dead had actually turned into 2 heads after being broken in 2. Li Changgong was instantly dumbfounded at the sight, and while the Centipede King had yet to recover, he chose to retreat out at the first opportunity. Zhang Yi and the others were also gazing at the Centipede King's centipede with heavy gazes. Zhang Yi wasn't sure what had happened. Just now, Li Changgong's strike had clearly hit the theoretical source. However, the Centipede King did not die, but instead split into two heads. Could it be that individuals after mutation don't always have the same location where the source is located? Splitting, does it mean that it has more than one source? Zhang Yi's everything follows the trail was only able to observe the future of the Centipede King bug 2 seconds later, and he was unable to figure out what the King bug's abilities were like. And in this way, he also ran into a trouble. One Centipede King centipede was already so hard to kill, too. Could the four of them win? It's really hard to kill. Zhang Yi said so. Li Changgong made a few swift flashes in the air and arrived not far from Zhang Yi. Chaos, 2 more times. Our means of attack are effective, and it has no way to defend itself against this kind of surprise attack. It can be killed. Zhang Yi, however, stared and said, it was effective the first time, but it might not be if it comes again. Besides, which one is the main body? Or maybe both of them? However, Li Changgong and the others were confident in their hearts at this time. At the very least, it could be proven that their attacks were effective. Even if the Centipede King was strong enough, they had 4 of the top mutants of Huashu Kingdom. The 4 of them had different abilities between them, and when they were paired together they could complement each other's shortcomings, and even if they were to face a super monster like Centipede King with an ability index of around 20,000 points, they would still have the ability to fight. As long as they found the Centipede King's shortcomings, then they would not be far from winning. However, at this moment, the Slash's Centipede King was furious. Its indestructible body, its strong regenerative ability that was almost impossible to die, had also met its natural enemy today. The crisis of death caused it to erupt with an even more powerful killing intent. Screech, screech, the 2 Centipede King insects after splitting emitted ear-piercing chirps from their mouths, and one of them's body squirmed strangely. Zhang Yi's attention instantly fell on its body. Immediately, Zhang Yi changed his face and droned, "Not good, close your eyes." The moment the words fell, Zhang Yi immediately ordered the intelligence system of the combat suit to isolate the light source from the outside world. Time was too short for the other 3 to react. And right at this moment, the skin of that Centipede King with a weirdly writhing body fell and stacked like a shaggy dog in layers, and from amongst the stacked thick skin, a dozen or so gigantic and hideous purple pupils were violently opened. The huge eyes rolled rapidly, and a demonic purple light blossomed out from the dozen or so pupils, enveloping the entire underground lair in just an instant. Although Zhang Yi had spoken out to remind him, but where could a human's reaction speed be that fast? Zhong Yue's 3 people were still unclear about what was going on, and even though they subconsciously wanted to shield the light source, their speedy reaction still didn't come in time. Han Shanzhua was about to do something when suddenly, the Centipede King's body in front of him unexpectedly expanded like a balloon. The original 500-meter-long terrifying body grew when it saw the wind and kept rising. 1,000 meters, 2,000 meters. Its head reached the top of the underground cave, and it even had to lower its head because its body length exceeded the height of the cave. Han Shanzhua's mouth was wide open, and a cold chill ran through his body at the scene in front of him. The Centipede King in front of him was even more gigantic than a mountain. Even his Calamity Crow incarnation at this moment was as small as a mosquito in front of the other party. Centipede King lowered its head, looking down at Han Shanzhua, its huge mountain-like head slowly pressed down. Han Shanzhua suddenly felt that his body could not move. That was the reaction of facing a powerful existence that he absolutely could not defeat. His heart had already told himself that it was pointless to resist, so he might as well sacrifice his life to this powerful being. Han Shanzhua, Li Changgong, and Zhong Yue were covered in cold sweat at this moment. They hadn't thought that the gap between themselves and Centipede King was so great. It was an existence that was absolutely unbeatable. It made their hearts unable to give birth to any thoughts of resistance. But just at this time, a weird and ear-piercing sound suddenly rang in their ears, like a bee sting piercing their brains. Pain, dizziness, and all sorts of sensations made them almost want to vomit on the spot. And this intense feeling of irritation was like a large hand crumpling all the sights in front of them. Han Shanzhua almost vomited out all the rice he had eaten in the morning, but he also saw clearly everything in front of him. Where was the earth centipede that was as huge as a mountain? It was clearly the hideous, monstrous eyes of that earth centipede's doppelganger peeking out from amidst the wrinkled flesh and skin, releasing a bizarre, demonic violet light that caused them to hallucinate. "Wake up! It's an illusion!" Zhang Yi's chortling voice rang in the ears of the three. He had already isolated the light from the outside world in advance, so he was not trapped. This was the benefit of having the time-based ability to anticipate the enemy. The principle of illusion was not difficult to understand, giving the brain false information by affecting one's 5 senses. Earth Centipede's doppelganger possessed this ability of group hypnosis through light. Although the illusion was powerful, it could also be cracked by recognizing the way it was cast. Zhang Yi had not been struck, and the means he had prepared to cope with the illusion was to inflict even stronger stimulation on the brain, somewhat like fighting fire with fire. The squad channels of the 4 people were all on, and all that was needed was to utilize the sound waves to stimulate their brains. The 3 people came back to their senses at this moment, drenched in cold sweat. The ability of a 20,000-point mutant beasts was truly terrifying. If Zhang Yi wasn't here today, and if any other white chariot-level mutant beasts were here, I'm afraid they would all be in danger.